Have you ever wondered why the kindest people often suffer the most? Why those who give the most receive the least in return? It's not just bad luck. Society has a hidden mechanism that punishes genuine compassion, not because kindness is wrong, but because it exposes what others lack. History confirms it. From Buddha to Mother Teresa to countless unnamed humanitarians, those who showed radical kindness faced persecution, exploitation, or abandonment, not because they were weak, but because they made others confront their own selfishness. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, warned that true virtue appears as foolishness to those who cannot comprehend it. But why does this happen? Why does authentic kindness trigger such resistance? The answer reveals something disturbing about human nature. Think about this. When you meet someone physically attractive, you might feel envious, but you can still appreciate beauty. When you encounter someone successful, you might feel inadequate, but you can admire their achievements. But when you meet someone genuinely kind, someone who gives without expecting returns, something unsettling occurs. Psychologists call this moral dissonance. A truly kind person doesn't just perform good deeds, they expose the selfishness in those around them. And people rarely forgive that mirror. The mere existence of someone who acts from pure compassion can make others feel morally inferior, even if the kind person judges no one. Why does this happen? Why does kindness, more than any other virtue, provoke such discomfort? To understand this, let's examine how our minds process different forms of goodness. When someone donates publicly, we see it as normal social behavior. When someone volunteers occasionally, we view it as admirable but achievable. These actions, charity, volunteering, politeness, are measurable. We understand them within social frameworks. However, genuine kindness operates differently. Unlike calculated generosity or strategic altruism, authentic compassion stems from inner nature. We define our moral worth by our actions, our choices, our willingness to help. When we encounter someone who helps instinctively, someone who questions nothing about giving, it can feel like judgment on our calculated approach to goodness. Instead of inspiring kindness, many people subconsciously resist it, not because the kind person is self-righteous, but because their natural generosity forces others to question their own motivations. This explains why, throughout history, the kindest souls have been exploited or marginalized. Their compassion doesn't just challenge behaviors, it challenges the very foundation of transactional relationships. And human beings, by instinct, protect their self-image from uncomfortable truths. Reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever performed a selfless act only to watch others question your motives? Have you noticed how people grow suspicious when kindness comes without conditions? This isn't paranoia, it's psychological self-defense. When people encounter genuine compassion, their mind activates protection mechanisms. Instead of reciprocating, they rationalize. Instead of accepting, they suspect ulterior motives. This is why empaths, healers, and natural givers often find themselves drained, not because they choose isolation, but because society exploits then abandons them. Remarkably, research shows that cynicism is often perceived as intelligence in modern society. People naturally trust those who expect the worst, even when pessimism proves unfounded. This explains why skeptics gain more credibility than optimists who believe in human goodness. Consider social media. Negative comments receive more engagement than positive ones. Critics appear smarter than supporters. Meanwhile, those who consistently show faith in humanity struggle to be taken seriously. This creates the paradox of kindness. The more someone believes in human potential, the more they become alienated from humanity itself. But is there scientific evidence that people actually fear genuine kindness? Modern neuroscience reveals something startling. Studies demonstrate that witnessing authentic altruism activates the brain's anterior cingulate cortex, the region responsible for social pain and exclusion. In other words, pure kindness doesn't just inspire, it triggers the same neural pathways as social rejection. But why does compassion activate pain circuits instead of pleasure centers? The answer traces back to evolutionary psychology. For millennia, human survival depended on reciprocal relationships. I help you, you help me. Our ancestors evolved in environments where unconditional giving could mean death, as resources were scarce and trust was survival currency. This explains why human brains are wired for transactional thinking over genuine altruism. When someone demonstrates unconditional kindness, they unknowingly violate these ancient survival programs. Their presence disrupts the social economy of favors and debts. This triggers the brain's alarm system, as if encountering something unnatural rather than purely good. This is why many kind-hearted people feel exhausted, not because they lack boundaries, but because their compassion operates outside society's transactional framework. A 2022 study from Oxford University revealed something even more troubling. The exploitation of kind people follows predictable patterns. When individuals demonstrate consistent generosity, others unconsciously categorize them as resources rather than equals. Why? Because social hierarchies depend on power dynamics. People instinctively position themselves relative to others. If someone always gives, they're perceived as those who can be taken from, not as those who deserve reciprocity. This explains why the kindest people often attract the most selfish relationships, creating cycles of giving without receiving. Behavioral scientists have identified several mechanisms that explain why kindness faces systematic resistance. The reciprocity bias. People feel uncomfortable receiving without giving back, but instead of reciprocating, they often distance themselves from generous individuals to avoid feeling indebted. Moral licensing. When people perform small good deeds, they unconsciously permit themselves to act selfishly later. Genuinely kind people disrupt this internal accounting system. The spotlight effect. Witnessing authentic compassion makes people hyper-aware of their own moral shortcomings, triggering defensive responses rather than inspiration. In our digital age, social media has commodified kindness. Algorithms reward performative compassion over genuine care, meaning that visible charity gains more attention than quiet, consistent goodness. Notice how viral content features dramatic acts of kindness, filmed charity, public proposals, recorded rescues. The algorithm doesn't capture the daily, unglamorous compassion that truly kind people demonstrate. When kindness becomes content, authentic compassion becomes invisible. As a result, society increasingly mistakes performance for virtue, making it even harder for genuinely kind people to find understanding or appreciation. So what does this mean for compassionate souls? The resistance to authentic kindness isn't just cultural, it's evolutionary, psychological, and technological. It's encoded in human nature, reinforced by social structures, and amplified by digital platforms. This doesn't mean kind people should become cynical, but it does mean they need to understand the forces working against their nature. But if society resists genuine kindness, what does it actually reward? The answer lies in strategic self-interest disguised as virtue. Rumi, the 13th century mystic poet, understood something profound about human nature that modern psychology is only beginning to grasp. Unlike philosophers who saw kindness as either strength or weakness, Rumi recognized that true compassion exists in a different dimension entirely, one that transcends ordinary human calculations. But why? What makes authentic kindness so incomprehensible to most minds? Rumi's poetry speaks of divine love, a force that operates beyond the realm of ego and expectation. According to his philosophy, most people exist in the world of duality, where every action demands reaction, every gift expects return, Every kindness calculates cost. However, genuinely kind individuals operate from unity, a state where giving and receiving become one action. They don't help others to feel good about themselves. They help because they cannot see separation between themselves and others' suffering. Regular people navigate relationships through exchange and benefit. Kind souls navigate through connection and shared humanity. This creates an unbridgeable gap between the compassionate and the calculating, where most people find meaning in personal gain, status, and recognition. Truly kind individuals often feel disconnected from these motivations, seeing them as barriers to genuine human connection. Rumi taught that the more someone's heart opens to universal love, the more difficult it becomes to engage in society's games of reciprocal self-interest. They see through transactional relationships. Most human interactions involve subtle power plays, strategic friendships, and calculated generosity, and those who operate from pure compassion struggle to participate in this theater. They crave authenticity, but society rewards performance.